Hi, this is Bob Papa, voice of the New York Football Giants, and this is the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. As always, proudly in association with Andy's Man Club. Let's remember, it is okay to talk. Kev's off-selling himself, so it's 100% British, but always, as always, 100% Giants. He's off-selling himself in Portugal on his jollies, so I hope you're having a good time, Kev, and I hope you're having a few beers for us as well. I'm back with Shane and Craig, and we are now only one whole single day away from Giants football, ladies and gents, as our first preseason game against our sparring partners, the Detroit Lions, more on that shortly, kicks off tomorrow night at midnight, boys. Another packed show. How are we doing?
Yeah, not too bad. As Dan knows, possibly a little bit overtired, so if anyone sees me yawning at any point, I'm not bored by Dan, Craig, or any comments. I'm just on my third day. What day is it? Wednesday? I'm on my third day of like 4 hours sleep a night. But yeah, looking forward to kind of, our last proper podcast without talking football, like actual football match, essentially, because like all the other ones going forward now, we're going to be talking about pre-season games and then obviously the regular season starting. So looking forward to getting into that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a bit of a jam-packed week for us. Obviously, Monday we did a show with the Giants Rush guys, so go and check that out if you haven't already. That was really good. We had Sean come and join me and Dan in the studio, and then there Craig, which got a little confusing, joined us live from a rest stop in New Jersey straight after training camp, and that was Monday's camp as well, where the fights kind of started. So we got some really good content with him. Another one to check out, Roar of the Lions. I was on the Roar of the Lions after that podcast on Monday night for a round table. So if you want to hear me go back and forth with the Lions guys, that's there as well. But now we're on to my third, our second pod of the week, and it should be a good one.
Yeah, looking forward to tonight. Should be another great episode, another exciting episode. Got lots to come. We've got our most important Giants heading into this season, and coming up also we're looking back at Hard Knocks as well, as we give you some of our favourite moments and also some things we felt were missing maybe as well. So yeah, lots to look forward to this evening. We're also now only a month away from our from kickoff weekend, so don't forget to join us and don't miss out on your first chance of the season to get together with us with your favourite Giants podcasters here in the UK. The only Giants podcast that's here in the UK and Ireland, as we'll be making our way to Shane's neck of the woods, to Box Birmingham, to join the Full 10 Yards Network guys at the 2024 kickoff party. It'll be great to see as many of you there as possible. Sunday, 8th of September. Get yourselves to Box Birmingham and come and have a drink and watch the game with us. As usual, up first.
Clarify.
Say again?
I'm not from Birmingham, just to clarify that.
Yeah, no, it's not far from you, though.
It's far enough.
Far enough. Shane's a black country boy.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, there you go. As usual, though, up first, we have the latest Giant news. It's seconds out, round one. Craig?
I mean, is the first bit of Giants news the fact that we haven't addressed the elephant in the room, that we might look a little older and a little bit more haggard than we normally do because we're in full
Whoa, hold on a minute.
Shay still looks as sprightly and young as usual,
I'm still early.
So we've upgraded to bring you full HD for the rest of the season. So if it's too much, let us know.
You are welcome.
if it's too much,
you are welcome.
We'll cut that.
We're gonna need to add a makeup artist into like the podcast stuff now before we go on air. Like,
oh, don't.
No. Does the beard look all right? That's the main thing.
A couple of greys there.
Yeah, oh, how dare you! How dare you!
Fights on the pod and fights in training camp. Then, yeah.
I take serious offence to that. I'm joking. I know there's some greys in there. Kate's always telling me there's greys in there, and she tends to try and pull them out as well. So yeah, it's all good. And yeah, we are looking extra. I know, Steve. Thanks.
So fight season, fight night, fight club. Again, it could be called. With the last town to hold 2 joint practices in what is a reversal of last off season. I think a lot of people kind of assume that this would be the real test of where the Giants are. And I think the answer is that we might be a little bit of a feisty team this year. And I'm totally here for it. A majority of the 2 days were spent with cameras focused on shoving matches, as we saw a good amount of swung punches as well. Some beta reporters and opposing fan groups have been derogatory with their comments on the decorum of both sets of players. But as we said, we love it. On Monday, we saw Drew Phillips show that he isn't backing down from anyone, despite being a rookie starting multiple fights. Daniel Jones, you are not hearing that incorrectly. Daniel Jones got passionate and jumped into the fray to defend one of his linemen. Since then, both Brian Dable and Brian Burns have expressed that they wish Daniel didn't do that, and if he can just take a back seat and not get injured, that would be great. And Jermaine Illuminor summed up the first day of joint practices with a simple tweet saying, "I love it here." Tuesday saw a continuation despite the pleas from both head coaches for a little bit less. Malik Neighbours kind of kicked it all off with Kirby Joseph. With those two, I think throwing hands probably doesn't describe quite how violent it was between the two of them. Gunnar Olszewski was punched in the face twice for some reason by Maurice Norris. I still can't figure out why, but Gunnar looked just as shocked. Theo Johnson and Aidan Hutchinson got into a little bit of a WWE-style grapple match. And then at the end, Thibodeau and ex-Giant defensive back Khalil Dorsey got practice cut 25 minutes short because they started a scrap on the sideline, which is defense against defense, which is quite weird because a lot of them were obviously offense versus defense because they were up against each other. So Dorsey clearly had an agenda there. Shane, I'll start with you. What are your opinion on the fights? Is it nice to see grit and camaraderie for the guys, or does it mar by what was all accounts actually quite an impressive showing on both sides of the ball by the Giants?
It's a little bit of both, to be honest, because like one of the things that we've said like for ages basically is that, you know, we want to see a little bit of fight from Giants. You know, we've seen in the past that, you know, DJ gets hit and there's no, you know, the opposing defensive players standing over to him or whatever, and no one really goes over, running over, pushing him out the way. But at the same time, like, you've got to have discipline. This is if this had been a game, it might not have happened. But if it did happen in a game, there'd have been players thrown out. You know, there's a reason. I don't know if you're going to touch on this, but there's a reason they've been fined $200,000 each because. Let's be honest, it's not acceptable at the end of the day. And I can't remember who it was. One of you guys might remember, but someone at the start of the week was being interviewed afterwards, and they said, "Oh well, last year Lions did this and we got bullied a little bit, and this year we just decided we weren't having it." Then what I want to see is fight, grit, determination happen off the cuff. I don't want these discussions happening in the locker room pre-game. Right, minute someone hits us, we're going to fucking punch them in the face. We're going to take their helmet. We're going to be like the Appalachian State defender. We're going to rip his helmet off him and bash him around the back of the head, Myles Garrett style. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to see. And I kind of feel like some of this that happened with the Lions was preemptive, and to an extent. And this, I'm not slagging them off when I say this, but I just think it shows a lack of discipline. At the end of the day, it's a physical sport. It's a contact sport. You can't just go around, especially punching people who've got helmets on. Like, for players that get paid so much and study as hard as they do, we all know how difficult playbooks can be. Why is every NFL player that wants to get in a scrap so stupid and punches people with helmets on all the time?
It's a very good question. I mean, you're asking for trouble by doing that. You're going to end up breaking a bone in your hand or something. Evening, Chris, or is it Frank? Which one is it? Sorry, Chris. I couldn't resist. Chris says this Giants camp was absolutely brilliant. The grit and not being bullied. I've been waiting for this for a decade. Dan Jones with a beard is here to stay. Let's hope so, because it's almost like he's a different man. In answer to your question, Craig, I don't condone violence in sport unless your name's Eric Cantona or it's a combat sport. But I mean, I loved it. I absolutely loved like the fire and the, backing up the teammates, and I think that's great. But I think it did go a step too far, and I completely agree with Shane that there does need to be discipline in place, and I think it does slightly tarnish the performances in those practices. You kind of want, at least the head coach to get a sort of grip on their players, get a control on the players, and be like, "What the actual fuck are you doing? Stop it now, or there's like some serious consequences." Obviously, if it's nothing to do with the coaches and it has been a sort of preempted sort of move by some of the team, just to, because I guarantee it's come from people chirping and running their mouths, especially after last year. And obviously, if that's sort of something that was sort of pre-planned, then the team being fined $200,000, that should be put down onto those guys that initiated or got involved with the fighting. And it shouldn't be down to the team to pay it. It should be down to the players to pay it. But I think I'm not surprised because of Dabe's. I mean, more surprised because of Dabe's. Less surprised with Dan Campbell. He seems like the type that enjoys a bit of a ruck. Just looking at him, he looks like a pretty rugged man. So I'm not surprised his team gets into that sort of into those sort of fights. But I'm glad that we put on a decent show in practice over the last few days. There's been a lot of positives coming out of over this camp as well and over these practices. But yeah, it does sort of slightly tarnish it a bit, and it makes you wonder if those fight scenes, if we didn't see those fight scenes, what else could we have seen from practice? And it's kind of taken like just the gloss off it a little bit. So yeah, there you go.
I think the other thing as well, I was just going to say, it's never good when you've what is he, 40, 45 million quarterback. Your number one wide receiver who's going to be your playmaker for the season, he's getting involved as well. And your GM's getting involved, trying to split players up. That's when you know it's gone a little bit too far, when your GM's having to try and separate players.
Yeah. Are we just one last poll, and this can go out to the commenters and the viewers at the moment. Are we in or out on bearded Daniel Jones? Dan?
In. Keep the beard.
Shane, Daniel Jones's biggest detractor on the podcast. Are we digging the bearded Daniel Jones?
I don't have an answer, because it's in a nice way. I don't give a toss. As long as he balls out, he can wear a pink tutu. I could not care less. I just want to see an improved Daniel Jones. That's all that matters. I don't care whether he wants a beard, whether he wants, what's them called, motorbike handle moustache or whatever. Do what he wants. Have a mole for all I care.
Handlebar moustache.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love to see him with mutton chops.
Oh, mate, that would be so sweet, wouldn't it?
Maybe look at the Dave's route and maybe just not shave it off until we lose. So
maybe you should.
Looks like he's having a shave one.
I knew. How did I know you were going to say that?
Yeah, that just naturally come into my head. That's the kind of negativity I have.
I fully expected you to say that. Chris says he's fully in. He's a demon. He's now known as Dan Jones. Darren said, "Never trust a man with a beard." Hello.
Apparently,
Steve says,
"Them people with the beards are nowhere. They're the worst ones, apparently." I'm just getting bullets tonight. I tell you.
Hello.
Absolutely bodied.
Isn't it? Wow, what have I done? Jesus. Steve, evening mate, says bearded DJ is absolute prime time. Whether it makes a difference or not, obviously, is neither here nor there. It's just nice to see him actually playing fairly well in practice, and let's hope that translates into game as well, and actually into the season. So, yeah, I'm all for keeping the beard, because I do like a nice beard, even if some people don't. There we go. Outside of the said, outside of those activities, there was a lot of positives to come out of joint practice. Jordan Renan reported by his count, Neighbours was targeted 18 times in live drills in those 2 days and caught 17 of them. Connor Hughes had it as 17 targets with 16 catches, and also said he had 2 20-plus yard touchdowns as well. So, that Jones to Neighbours connection is coming up quite nice. It's work in progress. The chemistry, they're obviously getting that chemistry and that what's the word I'm thinking of? I can't think of the word I'm thinking of. They're just sort of getting on the same wavelength, which obviously is what camp is for, especially with your new receiver. So it's good to see that. Cordell Flott was pulled today from CB2 spot. Was it today or yesterday he was pulled from there?
Yesterday, sorry. Yesterday,
wasn't it? Yeah. He was pulled from CB2, and Nick McLeod was given first team reps, so that's not a good sign for Flott. We'll be talking more about him later on. Brian Burns has looked the real deal. Didn't really expect anything less, to be fair. He would have had multiple sacks on both days, so looking like a good investment so far. And friend of the pod, Bobby Skinner, and multiple others noted that the intensity of the 2 days was sky high. Just the atmosphere at camp. I mean, obviously, we know we spoke with Sean and Craig from Giants Rush the other evening lads, or afternoon. It's 4:47 in the afternoon there, so hope you're doing well. But yeah, we spoke to them the other day, and he said the atmosphere at camp was electric, and everyone was saying the same thing on the socials. I think Jordan Renan said it's the best atmosphere he's ever experienced at a Giants camp, and he's been following the team for 13 years. So, it seems to have gone down really, really well the last couple of days, and it led to a lot of tough reps as well. And so these are reps that, especially these new guys that have come in to the team, they're learning the playbooks, they're learning the schemes. These tough reps are what they really need, and I think. Yes, obviously there's been a lot of controversy with the fighting and everything like that, and they've received the punishment they deserve, and rightly so. But I think having this joint practice with the Lions and it being so intense is a really good way to sort of properly kick off the preseason. So hopefully it sort of leads us quite well into the preseason and actually into the season as well. So it's going to have had its sort of good and bad sides to it. And like I said, remember the Giants play Lions tomorrow evening. Kickoff here in the UK is at midnight. So if you are staying up to watch it, enjoy the game. But question for you guys, Shane, I'll come to you first. What do you want to see from the first preseason game? Is there any players you are going to be keeping an eye
on? I'm probably going to go for the linebacker position, to be honest. I mean, I don't think Michael McFadden's got that LB2 position locked down, in all honesty. I've been hearing good things about Johnson. Beavers has apparently looked all right in camp as well. So I'm just going to be intrigued to see. And in all honesty, I'm going to, in particular, hoping that Darius Masau gets quite a few snaps on the defense as well as a starting linebacker and see what he could potentially offer, and maybe kind of get a bit of a vision as to, maybe the front office saw something in him potentially as a linebacker and not just purely as a special teams player.
Craig, who are you looking forward to seeing?
I've forgotten his name, and it's really annoying me. It's defensive back. He's moved to safety from cornerback, undrafted free agent. Shame I remember his name. Alex something.
Oh, the UCLA kid.
Yeah, the UCLA kid. I'd like to see him. It's Alex something, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll let Shane look it up. Let Shane look it up because
Shane will look it up.
He's on it. But yeah, I'd like to see him. I think what we're also going to see. What was that?
Alex Johnson.
What an absolute just common name.
Bog standard name.
Yeah, just a bog standard name to forget. Yeah, so Alex Johnson.
It's not like it was a difficult one.
No, he's moved from cornerback, been taking reps at safety. Apparently looked really good as well. Intriguing prospect. I think he's got guaranteed money on his contract. So obviously a lot of interest in him. So it'd be interesting to see how he does. Deontay Johnson at linebacker was also going to be one of mine. It looks like the number 6 spot for wide receivers is going to come down to Gunner or Isaiah McKenzie. And I think that the kickoff and punt return game is going to really define that. And I think that pre-season is the time to basically have that battle and have the battle in live snaps, essentially, for two guys who, let's be honest, you're probably not going to wrap them in cotton wool like you would do Neighbours. I don't think Neighbours will probably play many snaps, if any. I don't. Obviously, DJ's not going to play. I can't see him playing much of pre-season full stop, but I very much doubt we'll see him on Thursday. I think it'll be too soon. And there are other battles there. I'd like to see Gray versus Tracy versus Turbo, Dante Miller. I think that's going to be a very interesting lineup there. By all accounts, it sounds like Gray has faltered a little bit and maybe fallen behind. So maybe this is his chance to shine. So I think out of everything, the one position I really don't care about is quarterback, because it's not going to tell us anything we don't already know. It's the little battles elsewhere that we're really going to look forward to.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to seeing how Tommy DeVito has developed, potentially. But outside, I think Drew Lock is Drew Lock. Chris, do you think DJ should play tomorrow at least the first quarter? Nope. No. Not at least not in this first game. Maybe the last preseason game, I would maybe like to see him for the first series, but like Craig said, I don't think we're going to see him much in preseason at all, if at all. Just because obviously his rehab from his injury is still ongoing. So I'd be very surprised if we do. Yeah, I'd be very surprised if we do see him tomorrow night. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in seeing how Drew Lock gets on. He's a serviceable quarterback. We've spoken about him on this pod before, so it's he's got that contract from the Giants, albeit they wanted Tyrod Taylor back instead of him, but Tyrod got more money from the Jets, so off he went, and then we obviously brought in Drew Lock, and he's an okay quarterback, really. So I'm kind of intrigued about him. But yeah, I think for me the really interesting one is that sort of running back battle. I think Eric Gray's got a lot to prove, and by all accounts, and from what a lot of people have been saying, he's like I said, he's not doing so well. So looking forward to seeing Turbo, looking forward to seeing Tyron Tracy as well, and I don't know. Yeah, defensive backfield is going to be a very interesting unit in as a whole. Both safeties and corners, even in the line, sort of that sort of linebackers as well, are going to be interesting. Like Shane said, with Michael McFadden potentially not being that lock at LB2, there's plenty of options we got there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow night, especially up against the Lions. Hopefully, we don't see any more fighting. We don't want a round two on the field in a game, because then there will be some more serious consequences, no doubt. And we don't need that. We don't that'll be too much of a distraction tomorrow, I think. So hopefully it's a good, clean game. And remember, it's not all about the win. It's about what we see on the field. What those second, third, even fourth string players getting really important reps to potentially try and fight for a roster spot. So that's the main thing we're looking for.
One person who has kind of apparently caught the eye that I would like to see is Nacho. Apparently, Nacho's looked a lot better in pass rush, which is something that he was absolutely atrocious at last season. I don't know how much time he'll get, because obviously he's a starter, and we need to look at behind him, especially Ryder Anderson, who's apparently been playing very well. But it'll be good to see Nacho kind of maybe show off a little bit more of a pass rush to complement his run game.
Yeah, he didn't have a great season last year, did he? So hopefully season 2 for him is more fruitful. Before we finish the news, I just want to give a mention to the GOAT that is Mr. Eli Manning. It was officially announced the other day that he's now eligible to be voted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2025, alongside the likes of Marshawn Lynch, Luke Kuechly, Earl Thomas, Aqib Talib, and Adam Vinatieri. They're the guys that are up for first ballot. It's their first time eligible. Surely Eli's a lock-in.
I think the Ravens lineman Yander, I think, is also.
Oh yeah, Marshall Yander. Yeah. I mean, he's got to be a lock-in, surely. If he's not a unanimous decision, I'll be disappointed.
I saw something quite interesting that somebody said where they were talking about if Kurt Warner's in the Hall of Fame, then you literally cannot argue
You
against
can't have
Eli because Eli
nope.
eclipsed everything that Kurt Warner did.
Exactly that. So, as much as there are plenty of Eli haters out there, he's got 2 rings, 18-1. Remember that season back in 2007? He deserves his place in that Hall of Fame. He deserves his place in that Hall of Fame. So yeah, he'll no doubt be voted in, and like Chris said, without a doubt, no question. All right then, that is the news for this week, and we're going to move on to Hard Knocks. And it's over. It's a shame it's over because we all want to, like I said before, we all want to see more. But we thought that we'd run through the season as a whole. So we've each picked one standout moment that we've learnt from the series. Say standout moment, standout thing, standout whatever it is that we've learnt from the series. To those watching live, let us know what you learned from the series, what you found really interesting, something you didn't know about the team, something you didn't know that happened within a team necessarily. But yeah, let us know what you learned from the series if you've watched it. But Shane, what's the thing you learned from Hard Knocks?
Hopefully it's going to be the last time I mention his name, but I'm going to go towards Dan's mate, who he now refers to as Judas, the guy that used to wear number 26 for us. And the thing I probably learned was Saquon Barkley was never coming back. For me, the bridges had been well and truly burnt. You kind of had hope. I think we all had a little bit of hope that he'd re-sign. We wanted him to re-sign. But I think when you look at the comments that Shane made towards Mara and even his associates,
Ed Berry.
Yeah, all the guys he kind of leans on, it was quite clear that Joe Shane never had any intention of re-signing him. It's quite clear that, excuse me, even though it was said as a joke, Joe Shane hadn't forgot the deal that he offered Saquon Barkley last year that Saquon went and turned down. And I think it was quite clear from the phone call with Saquon that Saquon had checked out from being a New York Giant. And I'd probably say, the reason I say it's what I learned, because I think all of us were probably quite surprised how fractured that relationship probably had become. Like I say, we all hoped he'd be back. We all wanted him to be back. But I don't think there was ever a chance of that happening.
No, it's a very fair point, and I think what we saw on Hard Knocks, we were all a bit disappointed in in the conversations that were had and how it sort of transpired, and he didn't give the team a chance, really, did he? So it was almost like you said, it was sort of bridges were burnt, and they'd almost to the point where they'd cut ties before it was even made official. So yeah, I mean, I think it did surprise us all just the way how the whole situation was dealt with, really. What I learned is that owner John Mara likes to keep an eye on what's going on. We all know that. The rumours of him meddling in the team and pulling the strings, they're not necessarily so true. They seem to be, not so in your face. But we can't speak for previous GMs, as Gettleman and Jerry Reese might have been on a little bit of a shorter leash. But from what I saw, it became very, very apparent that Joe Shane is a trusted general manager. The fact that although Mara clearly wanted to keep the face of the franchise, Mr. Snake One himself, Judas, it seems that the decision behind not putting an offer on the table was Joe Shane's to make. That he had the conversation with the owner, with John Mara, and that he was fully aware of the situation was going on, and it was Mara. He'd pretty much gone, "You deal with it. That's your job." So it was quite refreshing, I thought, and it's quite a we all saw Joe Shane in a really sort of positive light throughout the series, and he is a legit GM that I think can really take this franchise onto some really good things. From what we saw, there seems to be a really calm, professional relationship between the two, but they also seem to be like quite good friends as well. I thought. Behind closed doors, it could be completely different. Of course, we only saw little snippets, and there's plenty of tape reel on the cutting room floor that we never got to see, so that we could have seen some arguments potentially or whatever. But from what we saw, it seems like they've got quite a good relationship. But I truly believe that both John Morra and Steve Tisch, because let's not forget about Steve Tisch. He might be in the background and we don't see him as much, but he is just as much of an owner of the team as John Morra. They both fully trust Joe Shane to make the right decision for the team, not just for this season, but moving forward into the future as well. So, yeah, Joe Shane's a legit GM. John Morra trusts him, and it's I think he's earned that trust because he's made some tough but good decisions over the last couple of years. So, yeah, that was what I took out of, and the main point I took out of Hard Knocks anyway. Craig, what did you learn?
Mine might be a bit left field, but I'll explain why. Cornerback is the weakest position that we have, and we haven't addressed it properly. So as early as the first episode, Joe Shane turned around and said that the priorities for the season, that one of the number one priorities was cornerback. And after seeing how we performed last year with, Adoree Jackson not performing to where he needed to be, Trey Hawkins having sort of rookie hiccups, Banks missed a couple of games as well. So it was clear that cornerback was still an area we needed to address. And obviously Adoree left as well. So now it was then mentioned again in episode 2 when Joe Shane was talking about the potential Brian Burns contract, saying, don't worry, he could play corner, and sort of joking. So, you could see it was quite clearly on his mind what we needed to do. Nothing in 3 and 4 final episode comes around, and all of a sudden we get to day 2 of the draft and we're focusing on cornerbacks again. And they had earmarked that as being the sort of sweet spot of where they wanted to pick one up. I think that, round 1 was clearly going to need to be a playmaker. And they spoke about Lassiter and they spoke about McKinstry, who obviously then both disappeared. Now, we're now seeing the same issues in camp. We're going to get onto those in a bit later, but it shows that potentially this is something we're now going to be talking about going into next off season, and this off season hasn't even finished yet. So that was one of my sort of big takeaways from it, was the fact that it doesn't matter how much you actually do in the off season. Sometimes you don't even get to do your number one priority.
That's a great point. We're going to talk cornerbacks later because we're going to talk about our important defensive players. But yeah, I mean, cornerbacks are a big weak spot on this team at the moment. So it's a very, very good point. And yeah, I'm surprised it didn't get addressed through free agency, through the draft, even since then as well. We haven't really done anything we've done nothing to improve that room.
Well, I mean, we haven't done anything to improve that room. We signed about 37 lower down free agents at cornerback that seem to have not really done a lot, but including
it's just a revolving door, isn't it?
Shane's favourite, Mr. PED.
Mr. PED, love it. But yeah, so those were our standout moments. Did Kev sent in a standout moment for him, didn't he?
Yeah, so Kev said that. Yeah, Kev said that the thing that he learned from the series was that despite the fact that Joe Shane is the orchestrator of everything, it really is a joint effort between him and his staff. And I think he does hit the nail on the head there. We did see a lot of times where Joe Shane would deliberate with his staff, showing that actually this isn't kind of like a one-man band, but he does treat the Giants as more of a family feel, and he includes his scouts and all the rest of his sort of head team in that. So, absolutely valid point there by Kev.
Yeah, man. I mean, you kind of make your sort of assumption that under Dave Gettleman it was completely opposite, and he would just do whatever the hell he wanted and didn't care what his scouts or any of his team thought. So it's quite nice to sort of see a reverse of that. All right, so let's talk about what they didn't show then. For me, I really wish we saw more of like existing players on the roster. Not necessarily like in-depth sort of focus on a specific player or anything like that, but just a little bit. Like I said before, like, just the sort of what the off season looks like for them, what that sort of period between the end of the season and free agency, draft, sort of that 3-4 month period, what it looks like for them. How do they maintain their fitness? How do they, what are the sort of the OTAs that are arranged? Even a little insight into OTAs and things like that. That would have been really good. And obviously it was so heavily focused on Shane and on his team, on the front office. But yeah, that's one thing I wish we'd seen more of. But Shane, you first. What's the one thing you'd have liked to have seen that we didn't?
Interviews, and what I mean by that is I'd like to have seen interviews with the DC people we were looking at, and special teams on the offensive line, even the people that didn't get the job, or maybe even just interviews with the guys that did get the jobs at the end of the day. Excuse me, but also a bit more like player interviews as well, especially at the combine and at the Senior Bowl. Kind of just get a little bit more of an insight into players that maybe we interviewed that we didn't draft. Now I can understand why we probably didn't, because we didn't draft them at the end of the day. But we saw interviews with the likes of the quarterbacks. I'm sure we didn't just meet with quarterbacks at the combine, we'd have met with other positions. So I would like to have seen them. And then also interviews with the guys that we took on day 2 and 3. We've seen the QBs being hosted on their visits and the wide receivers, but I'd like to have seen a little bit more of interviews with the guys that we drafted on day 2 and 3.
Yeah, man. I'm fully behind that as well. I'd have loved us into those day 2 and 3 players, just little snippets of their interviews. That would have been great to see, just to sort of get a feel of their character. I like that. What about you, Craig? What was missing for you?
The mystery man himself, Mike Kafka. I want to know why his role's changed, what his role has changed to, why he's so uninvolved, why he's not the play caller. What is he actually doing as an offensive coordinator? That's the bit that comes round. He was a bit part in the series. I don't think he actually appeared until episode 4, and between those last 2 episodes, he was probably on screen 2, maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
And like we said, we never ever found out what actually went on, what those conversations were. I mean, Andre Patterson, the defensive backs coach, and Mike Grove, the wide receivers coach, got more airtime than your offensive coordinator, who's going into year 3. And despite the fact that he's not calling plays, you would have thought he would have been more involved in choosing offensive players. So that was it for me. It was just Mike Kafka is the missing man, essentially.
Yeah, just was completely non-existent, wasn't he? And for somebody that's an important cog in this organization to not have any, even there wasn't just to have the slightest lot of interview, like a 1-minute sort of Q&A with him or something, it would have been good. But yeah, that's another thing that I wish I'd seen. But yeah, it's a great thing. What did Kev say? Have you got that as well?
So interestingly, kind of what Jamie said. So Jamie said more of the contract extensions and what rehabbing looked like, and Kev said more in-depth contract negotiations for free agency and Burns. And that's right. We didn't really see anything. It was the contract negotiations we really saw were kind of with Joe and his other sort of front office staff in trying to get the contracts tied down from an internal perspective, but not from a player perspective. So that's that was Kev's. And then sort of in the comments, Jamie also said felt crammed with content as opposed to hearing from the players, which is true. We didn't really hear anything from any real existing players. I think we saw snippets. I think Dex got one thing when he was talking to Nubin, and
that was when Nubin came in.
Yeah. And Steve Wilkins said,
Steve, wish we were showing the Wink departure.
Mm-hmm. So,
and departure. To be fair, I was I was toying between that. Yeah, I was toying between that and more player content is what I really wish we'd seen. So even with the Wink departure, just on that as well, even if it was just a case of let's address it, it's the elephant in the room. It's what lots of people have been talking about over the off season. Wink is no longer with the team. We don't need to know what happened. Just address it. But the fact they didn't address it and they completely avoided the situation, it was that wasn't a great look, I didn't think.
I think part of the problem with that did come the fact that HBO cameras didn't arrive at the facility until, was it mid to end of February?
True that.
But the Wink caught firing obviously in mid-January, so there was unless the Giants recorded it, which I'm sure that
I mean, you never know. There might have been a hidden camera somewhere, or a fly on the wall, something like that. But yeah, that's a good point. Actually, to be fair, I'd forgotten that the HBO cameras came in late. All right, now to our favourite individual moments. There were loads to choose from, really. But for me, my favourite moment, it just made me laugh. Was Dave trying to convince everyone that he could run the 40 in 7 seconds or less. I just thought it was brilliant. Now, mate, caveat to that, in the shape he was at the time at the Combine, we're talking 6 months ago, maybe not. The shape he's in now, I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, maybe he's got dodgy legs. I don't know. Yeah, there we go. I mean, maybe he's got dodgy legs. I don't know, but yeah, I wouldn't put it past him now. But yeah, that bit just made me chuckle. And the other bit that made me really chuckle was again with Dave's in the swimming pool on his birthday with a big fat cigar. Well, that was quite funny as well. But Craig, what was your favourite individual moment?
Mine's a bit of a sort of two-parter, but they're kind of intertwined with each other, and it both involves sort of the lead up to the draft. Firstly, that scene where they had Joe, Dabes, Mara, and Tish all kind of sat down and they were going through the board and looking at the first top 6 picks, and it was like, okay, this is what we know. This is what Chicago are going to do. We assume Jaden Daniels to the Commanders, yada yada, and then they get down to 5 with the Chargers, and they're like, right, we think they're going to go offensive tackle, so they might go they might go another way. But what happens if they take Neighbors? And, we have a deal in place to trade down if necessary. We can go down to 10. If we end up with Rome, we end up with Rome. Obviously, it was the first time we had Bauer's name mentioned as well. So that was the first bit. And it just showed that, and bear in mind, this was literally in the episode, literally just after the Patriots had basically stonewalled the Giants and said, look, we're not trading. So Joe had to pivot immediately. He was like, right, here's my plan. Now, the other part which is intertwined with this is when you move on to the beginning of day 2 and we end up taking Nubin because Lassiter and McKinstry are gone. And it's exactly the same thing. It's that mentality that Joe Shane has where he's like, right, we know exactly what's going to happen here. And if it does, we're going to Nubin. And it was just the fact that it was 2 separate moments where clearly he is a general manager with a plan. And I would expect other general managers to have this as well. But it's just the accuracy that it happened just made it come across a lot better on film.
Nice. Like that. Shane, your favourite moment? Was it Jamie?
I'd probably go for the camaraderie between Dable and Shane. Some of the when Daves is admitting to Neighbours, you know what, I get a little bit hided in at time, and then Shane gives him that little side eye and a little bit of a smirk. Just the way they am with each other, and the fact that their wives hang out together, and whilst professionally Shane is Daves' gaffer, you also get the sense that they are very good friends as well at the same time. And then just following on from that, probably the camaraderie with Joe Shane's associates as well, in particular Chris Rossetti, who I thought really impressed me, to be honest with you. He's the kind of thing, for me, the way Chris Rossetti come across at times when he was explaining things made me think, if other teams watch this, they might try and poach him, because he seems very knowledgeable, raised very genuine concerns and valid points. And obviously, Joe Shane trusts him as well. But, you know, the camaraderie between sort of everyone who's close to Joe Shane, but in particular the relationship that Daves and Shane seem to have, you know, hopefully that's going to benefit the team, because if they were getting along on the same page the way they seem to be, you know, it's going to be a lot easier than, say, the way Wink and Daves were trying to get along, which was polar opposites.
Yeah, I mean, notice there's a lot of positives being said about Joe Shane in our Hard Knocks review, and I think, like I said, it comes back to my point: is he is a legit GM, and he just sort of exudes confidence, doesn't he? And you have that confidence in him that he knows exactly what he's doing, and that link and that bond he's got with Dabes, you can't force that. You can't, you know, that's obviously been built over years. So I think it just works, doesn't it? It just works. What was Kev's favourite moment of the series, Craig?
I think it was just the overall level of access that we ended up getting, which I think we can all agree with Kev when he says it's a lot more than we thought we'd get. I think it was very difficult for us to try and understand what level we thought, but it definitely exceeded all those expectations. But Kev also rightly says still wanted more. Like we 5 episodes weren't enough. They just weren't. And at the end of every episode, it was like, is that it? We're now going to have to wait a week. So yeah, and then we've had a few comments. Jamie has given us 2. Drew Locks, what shall I say to the camera? Whatever, anything. Fuck the Eagles. Is an absolute. I still want to know who that was. And
What a line!
I think it was Rossetti. I do really think it was Rossetti who was in there.
Love that.
Jamie also said, like, the moment on draft day, draft Daniels, it's what will make the franchise. Now, I think that was Joe Shane's son who said that when they were talking about that. So yeah, being future GM right there in Joe Shane's son with everything that he was saying. And Chris, John Mara saying he'll lose sleep if he goes to the Eagles, obviously referring to Saquon there. I wonder how much sleep Mr. Mara did end up getting across those few days.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he tossed and turned a little bit. At the end of the day, we lost the face of the franchise, so no doubt he was a bit annoyed about it. But
if he's been watching Neighbours this week, I'm sure he might be sleeping a little bit easier, to be honest with you, because I think whether it's number 9, whether it's 88, whatever number it is, I think we might be seeing a lot of them at Giants games over the coming season.
Yeah, that's going to be a hot commodity. I mean,
football evolves.
Go on, Dan.
I said football evolves, football moves on, and, you know, the past is the past. It is what it is.
Yeah. I was going to say, has anybody else had any flashbacks to Hard Knocks? I was at a barbecue the weekend and that frigging Beyonce Texas song come on, and I just thought, oh, they played that when I was doing the roulette casino stuff.
That was, you know what, that I'd completely forgotten about that. That was another top moment. The casino table, wasn't it?
Yeah, just really well done.
The graphics in general throughout the series were pretty good. Obviously, they've got nothing on producer Craig, but you know that were pretty decent.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, overall, like Kev said, fantastic series. We just wanted more, and I never thought I'd see the Giants on Hard Knocks. So, I mean, we probably won't see them on the training camp Hard Knocks anytime soon. But at least we can say we've seen the Giants on Hard Knocks, and just when that theme tune kicks in, and then you see the Giants logo there, it's like chills down the spine moment. It was quite surreal. So yeah, that was another top moment for me. So yeah, loved it. Hard Knocks. If you haven't watched it and want to watch it, get in touch. We'll try and sort you out a way to watch it. I don't know if it's going to be put on the Zone anytime soon, but I know it's been announced already that the training camp with the Bears is already going to be shown on the Zone every Thursday it comes on. So it's almost like, well, they've got that, so why didn't they have the bloody off-season one? Go figure. There we go. Alrighty. Hard Knocks in the bag. It was good while it lasted. Moving on to the final part then of this evening's episode. It's our most important Giants. Let us know in the comments who you think our most important players on both offense and defense are. Myself and Shane decided our top 5 on defense, or say top 5. It's now then turned into a top 6. Thanks, Shane. We'll bring you them shortly, but up first, it's the offensive guys. And Craig, according to yourself and Kev, who are our most important offensive players?
Yeah, I mean, we might as well have called this top 6.
Just before we start this, should we maybe just explain to the viewers why me and Dan have ended up with defense and you and Kev have ended up with offense?
I mean, Kev loves tight ends. And yeah, it's we're going to carry this on throughout all of preseason and the season. So yeah, Dan and Shane have taken defense. I'm not quite sure why you took defense. Was there a reason behind it?
Who, me?
But well, either of you two. Was there a reason why you took defense?
Shane?
LBU.
There you go. He loves his linebackers. Hey, I love me a bit of defense. Come on.
So yeah, and we were all surprised that Shane gave up the ability to talk about Theo Johnson throughout the entirety of the season, especially with Saquon gone. But yeah, so for the rest of the season, inside the games, myself and Kev will be watching the offense and bringing you all the information on them, and Dan and Shane will be your resident defense dominators, bringing everything to defense.
I mean, I'm happy with that because I get to talk sexy Dexy every week.
We're gonna lock that shit down.
Hell yeah, we are.
Shane.
Oh no, who'd have thought I won't get to talk O-line?
Go on, Holty.
Ain't that a shame? I missed out on the O-line breakdown during the pre-season. I'm gonna not be able to talk about the O-line all season.
Viewers poll. Snap viewers poll. Should Shane move to offense? Yes or no? Go. All right, Craig, over to you, mate.
Yeah, so obviously there is no Kev this week, so I'm going to be talking a lot for the next probably 15 minutes about offense and who we chose. I'm going to go from essentially 5/6 all the way up to who we think is the most important. And 5 is where we couldn't agree. So myself and Kev did agree with the other 4, but this is where we couldn't agree. Now, Kev said Devin Singletary, and I said John Michael Schmitz, and I get both sides of it. Singletary is replacing arguably our only true weapon during the Dable shown era in Saquon Barkley. He's taken the number 26 and is probably going to be our lead back for the season at the very, very least. Is he flashy, jump cut, spin move kind of guy? No. But what he is consistent and professional, and that's exactly what Joe Shane used to kind of describe him when he was coming in. What he'll also bring is leadership and mentorship for a room that we've already discussed is young. We've got a rookie, an undrafted rookie free agent who was supposed to be drafted the year before, and a player who is going into his sophomore year. So we do not have an old running back room, and he is going to be invaluable. So that is why he is sort of Kev's most important at number 5. For me, it was Schmitz, and it's really, really annoying that he's missed so much time during training camp with the shoulder injury, because I feel like he needs the reps to try and bring himself up from last season, because it wasn't an awful season, but it was tough. But I don't feel like him missing reps really affects his importance to the team. Like I said, his rookie was difficult at best, but most rookies don't have to deal with 3 different starting guard combinations in their first 4 starts in the league, which is disgusting. Like the fact that I think it was Glowinski and Bredesen. It was then Bredesen and McKethan, and then it was Pugh and Glowinski. Oh no, it was Schmidt. It was I've forgotten his name because he was so crap. Began with an S. Shane didn't like him. Oh no, it's first. It is Shane Lemieux. It was Lemieux who was the other guard. So, yeah, the fact that in his first 4 starts he had to deal with 3 different combinations of players next to him is just ridiculous. He needs consistent play. We should hopefully get consistent play with Runyon and what looks like Stinney or Van Rotten. And he needs a bit of proper mentorship. He has that leadership quality. He just needs to show it, and then he'll anchor the line for years. But we really need to sort of see it quickly. After that, it was pretty much unanimous that Theo Johnson was going to be important for this season. Just like the wide receiver position, which, if obviously we're going to get into shortly. The Giants have been generally poor at the tight end position in recent years. And even though we've had some players that could be described as solid, but not amazing, we really have missed a trick in finding that dominator that teams use. Someone in the ilk of Travis Kelce, George Kittle, or Hawkinson, who really can change a game by themselves so teams don't have to rely on a running back or a wide receiver. It gives them a slightly different wrinkle.
I mean,
Is it
we
fair?
thought we had that in Darren Waller.
We did think we had that in Darren Waller, but unfortunately his hamstring had other ideas. Is it fair for us to maybe put all that pressure on Theo Johnson straight away? Potentially not, but I'm not saying I want to see him start week 1 and play every single snap. That's not why we're saying that Theo Johnson's going to be important to this team. What he is going to be doing is being a go-to for Jones in sporadic ways, and trying to say that he's going to do that consistently is an unrealistic, expectation for a rookie. What his importance will be is situational and well thought out between Kafka and Dable. He'll show flashes. He'll be able to show off his athleticism that would sort of saw him so highly regarded by our coaching staff in order to actually get him in the 4th round. Like we said, will it be consistent? Unlikely, but we will probably get some wow moments over the years, and that's what we've been missing at the tight end position. Probably, as Sean said on Monday's podcast, probably since Shockey. Next up, the man with the biggest profile picture I've ever seen on the Giants website, Jermaine Illuminor.
The biggest head.
The biggest head, yeah. Evan Neal has not appeared on a football field this preseason, and that means that our big free agent guard signing has been lining up at right tackle, which, let's be honest, we all kind of hoped he would do when we signed him anyway. That was what we wanted. We wanted him to push Evan Neal. Admittedly, Evan Neal hasn't been there to push back, so it was quite a one-sided battle. Over the last 2 years, Illuminor has seen his snap counts per year almost eclipse his total snap counts from the previous 5 years combined. And in that time has improved his run blocking grade and maintained his numbers in pass blocking. The Giants have been a mess on the offensive line when Thomas is in, and even worse when Thomas had to miss time last season. God forbid, if Thomas went down again this season, we would not have to put up with having to pull somebody off the couch like Justin Pugh or see if Josh Azudu can do the job. Because as much as we probably hate to admit it, Evan Neal probably could still do a better job at right guard than most of our backup left guards could do, subbing for Andrew Thomas. And Illuminor can play left guard. So we have that versatility there, and that's something that we really needed. We won't get that revolving door, hopefully, in both football play and literal sense of players. So there we go. He will be a big help. Now, that's the first 4. There are 2 more, which are pretty obvious. Any idea which way we've gone?
I mean, at the minute we've got 4 players and we've got 2 offensive linemen, so it better not be Andrew Thomas, because
You're lucky.
If we keep having O-line, I'm turning my camera off, man. I ain't having this.
I mean, best left tackle in the league, Andrew Thomas. Why would he not be one of the most important players in the offense?
It's a very, very good point. I think our importance here was importance to change and what we need to see.
One of them's got to be, I would say one of them's got to be a wide receiver.
Yeah. And not just any wide receiver, an alpha wide receiver. If there is anything that we can take away from the last few weeks of camp, and it's our new motto because it's plastered all over t-shirts at camp, Neighbours is a dog. He is a dog.
He's a dog.
He's not only embarrassing our own cornerbacks, but he's been embarrassing cornerbacks on a team that were a game away from the Super Bowl last year. And he's going up against their number one defense a lot of the time. The Giants haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since 2018 when a certain other LSU alumni was drafted by the G-Men. Neighbours will get the obligatory comparisons to Odell throughout this season. He will. It will be his calling card through the entire season. But that's not because of school and position. Odell was a dog too. He celebrated a touchdown pretending to be a dog and pissing in an end zone. He fought a kicking net, and he consistently put up numbers while making spectacular catches. I have seen Malik Neighbours do at least one of those three things already in camp, and it's definitely not an end zone sort of celebration.
Has he fought with the net?
I don't even think the kicking nets are on the sidelines at camp, thank God. Neighbours' importance isn't just down to when he's targeted as well. He will draw attention of number one cornerbacks. And if there's one thing that we have with this wide receiver room, we have plenty of 2 and 3 wide receivers who had to masquerade as number ones, who can actually be more devastating going up against sort of slot cornerbacks and CB2s. And that's what he will unlock. He will unlock a wide receiver room that is hungry. And finally,
I mean, let's not forget as well, Darius Slayton is going under the radar.
Darius Slayton is wide receiver 4 almost on the depth chart, unofficial.
And I mean, he's been our top receiver some of the last few seasons. So the fact that he's going so under the radar goes to show that how much of a dog we've got in Malik Neighbours, you know.
And finally, Vanilla Vic himself. As Hard Knocks revealed,
where's the picture with a beard? Come on.
The Giants don't have that, unfortunately. Media Day, he always shaves it off, doesn't he? So, as Hard Knocks revealed, the Giants were looking at drafting a quarterback and could have, if the right one was available, traded the house to move up for one. What that means is that last year was so jarring and unexpected that 1 year after signing Daniel Jones to a $160 million deal, they were actively looking to replace him. And for Jones, that needs to be the fire that he takes into this season. As we said on Monday's show with the Giants Rush guys, we need bearded Daniel Jones. We need, if you can remember from 2022, Big Dick Daniel. We need to win football games, and the main person on a football team who can win you a football game is your quarterback. As a fan base, we know that the leadership reigns of Shermer and Judge stunted his development. We know that he hasn't had a true alpha wide receiver. We know that outside of Andrew Thomas, he's never had a consistent offensive line. But we could and should have all of those things line up this year. Dable can scheme for Daniel. He proved that in 2022. But what he now needs is for him to execute it, stay healthy, and improve his processing and pocket awareness. Because if he doesn't, the calls for a benching could come quicker than Eli being benched for Daniel Jones.
I mean, I think a lot of our success this season, it lies on his shoulders. Or potential success lies on his shoulders, because without him this season, it's going to be a struggle. As much as I think Drew Lock is capable, you never know. I hope we don't have to see Drew Lock this season, but yeah, I'm not surprised Dan Jones is in there.
Shane, is there anyone you think we've missed?
I think if I'd have had offense, I think I'd have probably made a shape for Wandale to be mentioned. I think obviously he had his ACL injury. He came back last year. Once he got going, he looks very dangerous. It seems like they target him a lot in the short passing game in training camp as well. And like I said before, it was a pick I wasn't high on at the time, but I'm happy to be proven wrong. And I think he very well, if you look, we'll just say the three wide receivers is Malik, Wandale, and Jalen. You got two guys that have got, ridiculous rack ability once they've got the ball in the hands. And then you've got a guy in Hyatt who can take the top off the defense as well. So, I think I'd have made a claim or a push for Wandale to be mentioned.
No?
I mean, you could pretty much put the top 3-4 receivers in there, because they've each got a part to play, and having Neighbours there as that number one receiver is going to allow those others, to make plays in single coverage or even in zone coverage as well, because he is going to draw. If they're in zone, he's going to have CB1 against him, and he's going to have safety help as well, and that's going to draw those safeties away from those other targets in Wandale, in Hyatt, in Slayton, even Isaiah Hodgins if he's still on the team. Who knows? So yeah, I think any of them receivers could have been in there, but I think Neighbours is the one. But Wandale is pretty important too. I think off the back of Theo Johnson though, the whole debate about Dan Bellinger, what's going on with him?
Who knows?
Who knows? I mean, it'd be disappointing to not see Dan Bellinger as much, because his first season he did well, but at the same time, Theo Johnson, I'm mega excited about, and I'm so glad we got a potentially like top tight end on our team for sure.
So just for Shane's benefit, should Shane cover the O-line, he will not be buying drinks for the following people week one, and that is Holty, for Steve, or for Neil, who have said yes. However, Kieran said no more Guru.
Oh, Kieran's disappointed. We haven't got our Guru anymore.
Them days are gone, unfortunately.
So the torch has been passed to you, Craig. It's all good.
I'll take it.
Yeah. All right then. On to defense. Defense. It's my choice up first. Like I said, we did have 5, but we've now got 6, and I'm sure Shane will explain that coming up shortly. It's my choice up first, and I've gone with Deontay Banks. Excuse me. Obviously, our first round pick from last year. The expectation for him going into his rookie season were, let's face it, relatively high. Alongside Adoree, we really wanted to sort of see why we chose him at 24, 25, whatever the pick was, in the first round last year. And we had Adoree locked in as CB1. The likes of Flott in the team, Trey Hawkins, Big Play Darnay as well, and amongst a few, having that sort of veteran experience there. He had plenty of competition at that CB2 position, but his rookie season, I think, if not outstanding, in my opinion, he exceeded those expectations that were put on him, because he didn't have a all pro season or anything like that, but his stats don't lie. His stats were pretty damn good for a rookie cornerback with a lot of pressure on him, because let's face it, Adoree wasn't performing. There were plenty of members of our defensive backfield that weren't performing. We had to rely on the likes of Trey Hawkins, Jason Pinnock, and those type of players that we didn't expect anything from. So the fact that he's allowed a 57.6% completion rate and was third lowest, allowed the third lowest passer rating amongst all rookie cornerbacks last season, just goes to show how much of a stellar rookie year he had. And they're saying that the banks are closed on Sundays. That came around pretty quickly, and it started to ring true towards the end of the season. He's really sort of came into his own towards the end of the season last year. Had some really, really good games. Obviously, he had a couple of interceptions as well, and he this year he could be one of the biggest beneficiaries of the change in DC. Going from a man blitz heavy scheme with Wink to a zone run stopping scheme with Shane Bowen, it could potentially allow him more opportunities to make a play on the ball in zone coverage. And his step into Adori's shoes to lead that defensive backfield, for such a young guy, for someone in his second season, he is CB1. And to lead that defensive backfield, he's a indispensable member of this defense, I think. And he's got the expectations for him this season are going to naturally be higher because he's come into his second year. He's CB1 now, and he's got a bit of swag about him. But I want to see more swag. I want to see more I want to see the dog in him now. We saw a little bit of it last year. I want to see more of that in him and really make that position his. And so I think he's a massive integral part of the defense this year. Shane, who's your first choice?
Yeah, so we're going to stay at the cornerback position. Am I going to have one or two graphics come up here, or? Okay, I've got two graphics. So first one, my original choice was Cordell Flott. I need to get my notes open. Sorry, bear with me. There they are. So Cordell Flott, obviously 2022 third round pick. The reason behind picking him is obviously that CB2 position is available with Jackson having left. And like Dan said earlier, Banks naturally moving into that CB1 role. So Flott, he's been drafted and he's mainly been playing in the nickel for the first couple of seasons, but they're going to give him a chance outside now. Obviously, with Phillips being drafted in the third round this year as well, he's already been earmarked for that slot. And as we've seen on Hard Knocks, the team were hoping to draft a cornerback in the second round. That never materialised. So was it a possible pivot at the kind of last minute to Flott being moved outside? Also, there's been no real notable signings in free agency. When I say notable, I mean anybody's going to kind of challenge for that CB2 position. Now, in regards to Flott, he took 45 snaps on the outside last season. However, he took 432 in the slot. So it wasn't a position he played very often last year. But in his rookie season, he actually played 272 times on the outside. So he has got some experience in playing there. In that year, he played just 15 times in the slot. He has allowed 64% pass completion in both of his previous seasons. In his rookie season, he allowed a passer rating of 98.4 and then a 95.6 this past season. However, he's still a young player. He's only 22 years old as of today. And, if he can develop into that CB2 position and make it his own, then we could have the outside lockdown for years to come with him and Banks. That was all well and good until this week when Flott's just not been doing very well in practice and sort of... Nick McLeod started getting first team reps. I think it was yesterday he got his first team reps. So the reason McLeod's on there is because there was a very last minute pivot. And when I say last minute pivot, I think I might have mentioned it to Craig about 11 a.m. or 2 p.m. this afternoon that I might need to make an audible at the last second. So obviously in regards to Nick McLeod, he was an undrafted free agent out of Kev's Notre Dame back in 2021, where he signed with the Bills. He had one season with the Bills, then he moved. He got released by the Bills, then got picked up by Cincinnati, and then moved on to the Giants in 2022. Then in regards to his stats, again, he puts up a very poor reception rating. He allowed 68% reception rate last year and 61% the year before. And his passer rating as well is not overly great. 83.9 last year and 111.6 the year before. He does have a better coverage grade than Flott though last year. He put up an 80.7. So for me, one of these two players really needs to step up and make that CB2 position their own. Because at the minute, like Craig alluded to earlier on, the cornerback position was earmarked at episode 1 of Hard Knocks. It was never really addressed in the draft. It was never really addressed in free agency. When it was in the draft, like I said, it was Phillips who's been drafted to play the slot primarily. That's the right word, primarily. And kind of like Dan said, Banks is now being elevated from that CB2 to CB1. So we really need somebody to sort of step up and make that CB2 position their own, because as good as Banks was last year in his rookie season, he can't do it all.
Very true. And I think it speaks volumes that the first three players that we've picked are all the same position. It's a position, like Craig said earlier, we haven't addressed, but yet is so important on this defense. And I think the real key to how I think Cordell Flott's doing at the moment is the game tomorrow. I think if he sees any game time, he's not got that CB2 position isn't his. If he doesn't see any game time, I think he's there or thereabouts. So it'd be interesting to see if Flott is in the game at all anytime tomorrow. If he is, there's a battle on his hands. If he's not, it's likely that he's got that position for the time being, because that could all change. But yeah, 3 cornerbacks so far. We're going to mix it up. We aren't going to go for any more cornerbacks, I think. Let me check. No, there are no more cornerbacks on this list. You'll be glad to know. My second choice, Mr. Reliable, Bobby Okereke. I mean, the fact that he played every single snap last season is more than good enough reason for why he is so important on this defense this year. But we need to see more of the same from him in 2024. Not only did he play every single snap last year, but he really cemented his place in the center of our defense last year. He owned that LB1 position and was just, throughout the season, just consistently good at his job. And, they say, do your job. And he was consistently good at doing his job for the whole unit, for Wink and for the team as a whole. But, again, looking at the change in DC, he's going to have to adjust to the new scheme, but I don't have any doubt that he won't adjust to the new scheme. He's career high PFF grade under his belt from last year. I'm just looking for him to continue his dominance in the center of that defense. Obviously, barring injury, he's clearly tough. He's clearly reliable because reliable, dependable, whatever it is, because he played every single damn snap last year. The new defensive scheme, obviously less splits and more zone coverage, stingy run defense from Shane Bowen at Tennessee. Third down defense is pretty strong as well at Tennessee. So, it sort of plays to his strengths. He's got 5 years of experience in this league. A lot of that with Indy, and the similarities between Indy's defensive scheme and Shane Bowen's new defensive scheme, there are some similarities there. So I think we can see even more from Bobby Okereke this year. And no doubt he'll be called on to lead the defense this year, especially with that what is perceived to be a weaker defensive backfield. We might even see some linebackers dropping into coverage to help out as well. So, and his coverage grade is pretty damn good from last year as well. So, yeah, Bobby O is massively, massively important to this defense. And like I said, barring injury, I don't see why he won't play every snap this year as well. Now, Shane, your second choice.
Yes, my second choice, I went for Brian Burns. He was acquired on the 13th of March for a second and a fourth round 2024 draft pick from the Carolina Panthers. We kind of got to see some of the very minor details of that trade during Hard Knocks episode. Originally, he was franchised by the Panthers. However, upon completing the trade with the Giants, he then went on to sign a 5-year deal, $141 million contract, $87.5 million of which is guaranteed. Now, to date, he's had 49 career sacks. He's at double digits for 2 of his 5 seasons in the league. His least amount of sacks has been 8, which came in his rookie season. He also has 53 QB hits in his career and 144 hurries. Now, obviously, the reason for Brian Burns being acquired, we drafted Thibodeau a couple of years ago for 5th overall, but But outside of that, we've not really had any complementary players opposite Thibodeau. The likes of Jihad Ward were good, but they were never considered elite. We have, in my opinion, a great pass rusher. I think Aziz is better pass rusher than what Thibodeau is, but Aziz's problem is that he can't stay fit. As a result, it means that you've got too much pressure on Dex and Tibbs. So hopefully by acquiring a player of Burns' quality, you're giving the O-line another player to think about for, another player to account. And let's face it, if you've got Thibodeau rushing you, Dexy rushing you, and Burns rushing you, you can't double team all of them. You simply can't do it. So at some point, you're going to kind of have to go one-on-one, and whichever one of those three is one-on-one, you're going to hope that they're going to win that battle. So, you know, I think Burns is going to bring out the absolute best in Thibodeau. He's already been kind of saying that he's been teaching, or not teaching, but he's been advising Thibodeau on a few things that Sam Reddick taught him when Reddick went to Carolina Panthers. So, you know, he's already proven to be that leader. Early reports in training camp and in the practices with the Lions is that he's looked what you expect. Everything you expect to have got, he's been producing on the training on the training field. So, you know, hopefully Burns proves he was worth the trade, proves he's worth the big contract that he signed, and he's able to bring out the best of the players around him and elevate their talents as well.
Yeah, he's another big piece on the defense this year. There is one big piece missing, and that is Dexter Lawrence.
Is it a sexy piece?
It's a beautiful piece.
Talking about players on KFC here.
I mean, KFC is beautiful too. There are other chicken shops available. Yeah, last but by no means least, the best defensive tackle, nose tackle in the league, bar none. Dexter Lawrence is the fucking man. End of. Period. Good luck stopping him. What else do we need to say? He is so integral to this defense that out of all those 5 players we just talked about, I think he comes in and just the sheer disruption that he causes on that defensive line, it sends shivers down offensive linemen's spines when they think about coming up against him.
I think with Dex as well, everything you said correct, but also I feel like kind of over the last couple of months in particular, I feel like we're seeing him step into that leadership role now as well.
100%.
You know what? He's not an arrogant one. I think he recognises he's probably one of, if not the best defensive players on our team right now. He's been there and done it. He's earned his stripes, so to speak, and he's really stepping into that leadership role now, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Especially when he was drafted, there's a lot of questions about the draft pick. People are like, oh, we shouldn't have took him. People were saying, not Burns. I think Burns went the pick before us, potentially, or 2 picks before us. And I think the likes of people saying we should have took Montez Sweat. But I've always been a massive Sexy Dexy fan back to his days in Clemson. And it's great that he's elevated his play now to where he has. But like I say, for me, especially I don't know what it is over the last few months. I don't know if it's kind of the interviews he's been doing or seeing him talk to Newbin on Hard Knocks, but I just really feel like he's like, yeah, you know what? I'm a leader. I'm one of the leaders on this team.
He 100% is. And also, I just love that he just seems to have so much fun playing football. He almost just loves being on the field, loves being amongst his teammates. You know, the amount of trash talk that man talks as well is unreal. But it's just him, and we've spoken about him at length on this show before, and I think he's along with those other 5 players on the screen you see on the screen, he's a massively integral part in this unit this year, and I'm looking to see him lead the line for sure. Is there anyone you think we're missing, Craig?
I think the only person you could probably have an argument for is Pinnock, just because of the fact that he is stepping into that Xavier McKinney role as being the number one safety on the team. He kind of really shone last year without any of us expecting it. And, he kind of has his importance because of the fact that the rest of that safety room really do not have a lot of snaps at a pro level. We're looking at Belton, who's a ball hawk, but hasn't really had a lot of snaps due to injury. Nubin, who has been sidelined with a calf injury, but has now been told to kind of prove it and beat Belton to the number 2 slot there. And then the fact that they've even moved someone, like we said, Alex Johnson, who I mentioned earlier, into that safety spot as well. I've barely heard anything about Jalen Mills. Obviously shows that Pinnock is really still that number one, and the Giants kind of see him solidified as that. So he's the only other one. Tibbs, yeah, you could say that Tibbs is within a shout, but the acquisition of Burns will hopefully unlock Tibbs and have Tibbs appear on this next year as like a 1-2 punch. So no, I think that's summed up really well there. Just a shame that Flock obviously couldn't keep his end of the bargain up for Shane.
Big Dex loves smashing people. That he does, Kieran. That he does. Anyone can say any viewers got their most important? Chris has gone with Neighbours and Burns. We've got had both of them on our lists. They are key components to this team this year. I fully agree with that. Any other viewers had their say? No. Thanks for that, Chris. And yeah, I mean, there are what we perceive as our most important players. Obviously, you might have a different opinion. If you do, cool, let us know. And whether it's in the comments, whether you listen back to this afterwards or watch this back afterwards and sort of catch up, and you feel differently, or let us know and let who you think is important to this team. But yeah, there are our most important Giants on offense and defense, according to the four of us. Put it that way. All right then. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for tonight. We will be back next week, but on Monday evening. That's not Wednesday, Monday evening next week at the usual time of 8:30 to review our first preseason game against Detroit. Let's hope it's not second round of a fight that has spilled over into the game. Plus, we'll be making some bold predictions, which we all love doing on this show. So looking forward to that one. And we'd like to hear yours too as well. So if you are tuning in next week to watch that, we want to hear your bold predictions too. Anything else to add before we go, guys?
No, it's just, kind of essentially we're on the eve of Giants football now. Every episode from here on out, we're going to be talking about a Giants game, apart from the bye week, where who knows what we'll be talking about then. But, it's kind of been a quick but long off season, if that makes sense. When Dan said earlier on the combine was 6 months ago, I was like, oh shit, yeah, it was. Like, that 6 months is like just gone now. So yeah, kind of looking forward to watching preseason unfold, watching out for a few players, rookies, undrafted free agents, players that, hopefully we get a player that kind of comes from nowhere and makes a claim for the roster spot, but kind of enjoy it. And hopefully we have more positive episodes than we did last year.
Absolutely. And don't forget, we are just over 4 weeks away. 4.5 weeks away from our first meet up of the season for the first game of the season in Birmingham. So make sure you get down to that. Just one other thing, Patricia Trainer's put out a couple of kind of early pre-season game thoughts that kind of echo what we've said. A lot of players who have taken every snap over the summer are unlikely to be seen, and you can include Daniel Jones in that. Starters like Cordell Flott will play because his spot is not settled. It's unlikely we'll see Graham Gano do a lot of kicking, which is good because that means we will see our boy Jude take the field for the first time in Giants blue. The 3 tech backup linebackers with Deontay Johnson is going to probably end up getting a lot of starting reps. The kickoff return role is going to be good, and the Giants' run defense struggled against the Lions' running game in camp a little bit. Is that going to be something that's fixed? And the run game is something that we did not do very well last year. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, I hope that's not a sign of things to come, because our run D needs to improve big time. But yeah, I mean, I can't believe preseason game 1 is tomorrow. And it's like Shane said, it's gone quick, but at the same time, it hasn't. And you think like it's 3.5 months ago that we were all together at Kes on draft night 1. So where's that time gone? But mega looking forward to getting preseason underway. Like you said, Craig, we're only four and a bit weeks away from kickoff weekend. If you can get along to Birmingham, we'd love to have you there. If you wear a Legacy jersey, Kev's offered to buy you a pint as well. So take him up on that. You know, he's gonna be a few pounds lighter off on that evening, because I'm going to be wearing my Legacy jersey, that's for sure. But yeah, if you can get along to Birmingham's Box Birmingham, alongside the full 10 yards guys, should be an excellent night if you can make it. We'd love to have as many of you there as possible, even if there's like a dozen of us. At least we can sit there and chat Giants football for a big chunk of the evening. Plus, there's bar games. I think they've got shuffleboard. I think they've got pool tables, and the food there looks pretty good as well. So if you can make it along, we'd love to have you there. And yeah, let's roll on preseason. Let's see what this team is made of. This 2024 team is made of, and let's hope we see some positive football over the next 3 weeks. And I'm just looking forward to seeing Giants football back on our screens for the first time since the beginning of January. So hallelujah, football is here. Make sure you check out our socials for all the latest news. Follow the links in the description. Give this episode a big thumbs up, and give us a cheeky little subscribe as well if you fancy it. My thanks as ever go to Shane and to Craig for joining me, to you, the viewers and listeners, for tuning in. We are signing off. Until next time, let's go Giants.